Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here, and I'm gonna start this video by making a bet with you. Hey, I came here for Battlefield 5, not to gamble. Don't worry, I'm getting there, I promise. I bet that out of every single FPS game you've played since 2011, at very least 90% of those games took place and were set in either the present or the future. Did I win that bet? Well, if I did win that bet I just forced you to participate in, it's probably because numbers and analytical data were already on my side by a very wide margin to begin with. Since about 2011, nearly every single commercially successful FPS available on the market has been set in either the present or the future. Take Call of Duty, set in the future. Battlefield, currently set in the present. Even entire new franchises have been birthed, such as Titanfall, set in the future. And this calls something into question. It asks, wait a minute, how come we're not seeing any timeline differentiation here? How come it seems like all of these games are almost emulating the exact same time setting? It doesn't make a lot of sense, and the community is calling upon it. However, first we really must question, why is it that all these development studios are focused in the same time period? Well, I would personally argue that this is the result of a bit of a horde mentality in a sense among the developers. If we look all the way back to when the FPS genre was finally becoming mainstream, back when the first World War II games were being released, and while the FPS genre certainly had a presence prior to this with games like WW1 and things of that sort, it didn't really start to get big until the World War II games started coming out. So if we look back then, the first ever FPS WW2 games are released, and they do remarkably well. Games like Medal of Honor hit record sales, and other developers notice this. We see a bunch of other development studios now saying, hey, look how well insert FPS World War II title is doing. It's making a lot of money. Maybe we can cash in a little bit on their success. Maybe some of their audience will try our game if we make an FPS World War II shooter. So that begins to happen. You get massive amounts of development studios and publishers all trying to create World War II games. This is actually how the Call of Duty franchise got started. Activision was trying to create a product to really compete with Medal of Honor. So what we see now is tens of development studios all trying to create a World War II set game that's also FPS. And the community gets very frustrated pretty quickly. They say, hey, we've got tens of studios all trying to create what is almost the exact same game. Can we get a little diversity here? So people start calling on these developers to create a different set game, maybe a modern FPS in a sense. And this call is ironically answered by Call of Duty. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was really the first mainstream FPS game to release in the modern era, and it does remarkably well. Its sales are huge, higher than most FPS World War II shooters at the time, and other developers see this as well. Now we've got people like Battlefield saying, hey, look how well these Call of Duty fellers are doing. They're doing remarkably good by doing it in the modern era. Maybe we should do the same thing, and we can cash in on their success too. So now the same sort of horde mentality leads the entire industry to shift towards the modern era in an effort to cash in on this bit of a pie that Call of Duty created for itself. So now that's where we're at today, the modern future-esque era, and it's pretty odd because we haven't broken from that yet. However, that might change very, very soon. And as it would appear, DICE may very well be the development studio that breaks the modern FPS trend, going all the way back further than their roots in their setting, all the way past before World War II. I'll elaborate right now. So just a couple hours ago, German online game retailer known as World of Games, which you might have heard of before. I think I have, but I can't put my finger on it. Well, anyway, this online retailer recently accidentally leaked a listing for Battlefield 5. Now, in this listing, they also leaked the release date as well as October 26th, 2016. So make a little bit of a mental note for that. But the more interesting part about this leak is how they described the game. Battlefield 5 is described as a multiplayer tactical World War I shooter in the description. Multiplayer tactical World War I shooter. Now, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, Nate, wait a minute. It could have just been an accident. This could have been a disgruntled intern, right? This could have just been like a guy who didn't know what he's doing. I don't think so. Because these developers, they tell these retailers beforehand what game they're making. They don't just leave it up to these stores to guess for themselves. You don't ever hear about GameStop pulling out Gary from marketing and asking, hey, Gary, when do you think Battlefield 5 will come out and what do you think it'll be about? Well, Tom, I think it'll come out October 26, 2016 and be about World War I combat. Great, Gary, I'll put that on the website right now. I don't think any retailer's ever had that conversation with itself. These stores get a lot of inside info very early, and I think the case here is that this particular one got too much info and released it too early. However, either way, I think the potential for speculation on this game is absolutely infatuating. Firstly, just the consideration of the possible ramifications a game like this may have on the industry is amazing. It could trigger an entire shift in this horde mentality I was talking about earlier, back to earlier set eras and time frames. If Battlefield 5 really is set in World War I and it is a commercial success, this could have massive ripples throughout the industry. Maybe Call of Duty will return to its original roots. Maybe some games will go even further back to the Napoleonic era. There's a lot of really amazing things that could happen here if all goes well for Battlefield 5. However, to me, what is by far the most fun element to contemplate here is the game's actual gameplay itself, because when most of us think back to World War I, we were reminded, oh yeah, that's right, trench warfare. People hiding behind dirt, shooting at other people who happen to be hiding behind dirt as well. In any multiplayer game, that would usually just spell out camping on steroids. However, that's not even the tip of the iceberg for what DICE could do here. DICE would have a huge variety of elements unique and exclusive to the World War I time period to play around with. The first ever tank battles were fought during World War I with land ships. The first ever air combat was experienced during World War I. Picture it in your head. We all know how much DICE loves their air battles. Think about it. 24v24, all in World War I era early triplanes, shooting LMGs at each other as these massive German war blimps coax through the sky. Oh, that's a beautiful picture. Also, cavalry soldiers were still available in World War I. Yes, that's right. People on horseback armed only with swords fought against people with machine guns. And if that sounds lopsided, that's probably because it was. But nonetheless, there's a lot here. Nerve gas agents, flamethrowers, the first machine guns. So many unique elements that we could finally get to experience in an FPS game, and I think that'd be beautiful. Now, that's not to say no one's tried this before. Actually, on Steam right now, there's a game called Verrucht, I butchered the pronunciation, that tries to emulate World War I combat, and it does a relatively good job of it. However, it's nothing compared to what a commercial powerhouse like DICE and EA could put together if they really put their minds to it. So I'm super excited for whatever Battlefield 5 brings. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like if you liked, dislike if you disliked, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Peace, guys.